Hello everybody, this is Ryan from My Try Running Programs, and today's video is a little more selfish for me. It is my 2022 running goals, where I'll go over my 5 major goals for this year's season. So the first two goals for this particular 2022 season really revolves around the training that I'm going to be putting in for really the entire year. And I have 3 training programs in mind, and the goal is to use these to reach a relatively standard mileage. I think what a lot of people do, we pick the year and we want to run that year in mileage. So that would be my number one goal, is to run 2,022 miles, or at least close to that for the year, at least break the 2,000-mile barrier. I think that's relatively reasonable and is safe for my body. As last year, I think I ran somewhere around 1,300 to 1,500 miles. Now, with that said, I have 3 programs in mind, and the first program would be the Hanson's Advanced Marathon Plan. You can find this by just Googling Hanson Advanced Marathon Program. And I'll be making a detailed video as I'm currently doing this program. I am in the first week. So I'll give this program kind of a thorough overview, why I picked it. And then just like I did with my previous program, I used the Hal Higdon Advanced One Marathon Training Program. I will give weekly updates on how that training is going. Now, after I complete this program, I plan on jumping into the more relatively well-known FITS 1870 plan, or basically 18 weeks of training that builds up towards 70 miles as the maximum week, and then you taper back down again. And then after completing this training plan, I plan on completing a plan prepared by Mike Grattan. He was the winner of the 1983 London Marathon, and he puts together a kind of unique set of programs here, where there's one that aims for runners who are looking to run somewhere between 55 to 70 miles per week. And then for another set of runners who are looking to do 80 to 100 miles per week. And these kind of scale up and then scale back down, similar to the previous 2 programs, as time goes on. Now, you'll see in his program, he does a very unique style where it's more focused on amount of time ran versus an actual distance. And so for that, I would assume that most of my weeks would not go above 80, maybe 1 or 2 would. And then it would once again taper back down. So it seems like, to me, based on the estimations that I've been doing from these 3 programs, that would help me to progress relatively linear from a 60, mid-60s max miles per week up into the 70 range, and then up into ultimately the 80 range more near the end of the year. Now, for my third goal of the season, really it revolves around racing. And last year I was fortunate. I was able to PR in both the half marathon and the marathon, and actually technically the 10K as well. But with that being said, my primary focus last year was on longer distance running. And so I saw a 15-minute improvement in my half marathon time, bringing that down sub 1:30. And then was also able to get a sub 3:30 marathon while training for and ultimately competing in the 2021 California International Marathon. So with that said, I've eyed 3 races for this particular season, 2 of which I will admit I don't think necessarily will help me to PR on event day, but I think training for them will help me to PR for these distances later in the year as I pick more specific races for PR type efforts. So the first event that I have on my schedule is the Spasm Lake Chabot Half Marathon, held at Lake Chabot Regional Park, which is up in the East Bay area of California. And you can see that in terms of elevation gain, this is a pretty intense course. It has about 1,450 feet of total elevation gain within the event, and it follows basically around the Lake Chabot Park area, following around obviously naturally Lake Chabot as well. So you can see it moves. It's a pretty kind of zigzaggy course. This is going around a mixture of, this particular section of the course is kind of lightly paved, in some cases dirt road type area. And then when you move up into this particular area, you're also running on single track in some cases. So not necessarily a fast event, but I think training for an event that has a little bit more elevation gain will be good. It's kind of, as Hal Higdon, mentioned in his plan, it's speed work in disguise when you're training for hill type efforts. So that will be, I think, very beneficial for later in the year when I'm running faster events. And with that in mind, the half marathon that I have in mind for trying to PR would be the Lake Chabot, or excuse me, the Lake Merced Half Marathon. And this is put on by the Dolphin Self and Runners Club in San Francisco. Really cool club. If you're in that particular area of California or visiting, They put on races all the time. They do great work in the local community, so big shout out to them. And I've always wanted to run this half marathon. I've run around Lake Merced multiple times. Beautiful place to run if you're up visiting San Francisco and you're thinking of a place to go run. This is essentially a bike path that's about 4.5 miles long around Lake Merced in San Francisco. It's right across from San Francisco State University, which is also a beautiful campus worth visiting. So you would run this loop essentially 2 times fully, and then a third loop, you take a cutoff to cut about half a mile off, and that's how you would get the full 13.1 distance for that particular race. The beautiful thing about this particular race is that it's relatively flat. There is, a little bit of undulation, but not much. So it's a very fast course, and something that I think would allow me to have a very high likelihood for a PR type effort. So this is really kind of my A race. Now, the interesting thing about where I'm thinking of running a marathon is that the same company that puts on the Lake Chabot Half Marathon in April will also be putting on a full marathon and other various distances in November as well. And so I am potentially thinking of doing that Lake Chabot full marathon. That would mean that I'm really looking at probably either not PRing in the marathon this year, or having a pretty poor PR. And really the reason being is, as you can see by the elevation there, that would be a 2,900 elevation gain total, much higher than, for example, the CIM, which I ran last year. It's looking roughly at about 3 to 4 times the total elevation gain. So the final marathon selection is still a little bit up in the air. And I think it will depend on how my half marathon effort goes. If I end up running a lower 120 range half marathon at Lake Merced, then I do think it's worthwhile trying to train for and try to go for a Boston qualifying time. And in that case, that would change my selection for the third race. If not, then just for the course of getting more mileage under feet and just kind of biding my time a little bit, then I would probably run this marathon in the attempt to, once again, get some more various training stimuli so that I can benefit from that. So ultimately, that's a little bit up in the air, but I do plan on racing 2 half marathons and 1 full marathon this particular season. So my last goal is really focused primarily on 2 personal items. And the first one would be first getting to and then maintaining 180 pounds for my body weight through as much of the season as humanly possible. I'm a 6'2" male. I'm 31 years old. And last year, I kind of floated anywhere between 182 pounds to about 187 pounds from July onwards. And right now, I would say I'm comfortably at about 185 pounds after the holidays, a little bit of relaxing. I put on a couple more pounds after the marathon that I ran in early December. So really my goal now is just to get that back down. Shouldn't take very long, but to do that, I'm using a few different tools to track progress. The first would be using the US Navy body fat calculator. You can go to bizcalcs.com and find this particular tool. It's a really nice little tool where you can put in your information, your demographical information, your height, your weight, and then do a few different measurements and then include your weight in that measurement. And you are then sent out essentially an estimated body fat percentage. Because really, unless you're going to go to the doctor or get a DEXA scan, things of that nature, you're really not going to know your body fat percentage any other way. And so this just gives an estimated body fat percentage. My last measurement, if I'm remembering correctly, and it is, was 16%. I did that at the end of last year. I've not done a measurement yet. In fact, I'm going to do it later today. But essentially, I'm keeping track of this throughout the year on a weekly basis, just tracking my weight and then my measurements around the navel, neck. Those 2 areas are used with the US Navy body fat calculator, i.e. basically in conjunction with your weight, to give you an estimated body fat percentage. So it's certainly not perfect, but it's a decent tool to help track progress, just in case the scale isn't moving up or down particularly well. You can always track your body fat loosely just to see how that's progressing. And then really my last goal comes down to my running channel. And, this has been actually a lot of fun for me. I had just started in August deciding that if I create a YouTube channel, I'll probably keep myself a little more in line, because I'll just assume people are watching my videos, and people have been. I've actually really enjoyed it for just kind of sitting here and spilling my thoughts out on the internet. Folks have been really cool and have cheered me on and provided great feedback. So really a thank you to all of you in 2021 who started to consume my content when I started to do this late last year. And so really my goal is just to get better at YouTube. Video editing is not necessarily a skill that I'm great at. I'm still learning it. And I'm trying to be as engaging and as exciting as possible, as best that I can be. And so really this channel has, I think it helped me dramatically improve my half marathon and full marathon time. So I'm really grateful for the folks who've been watching my videos, leaving feedback. That's been a lot of fun for me. I'm not doing this for a view count or subscriber count. I'm really just doing it to be held accountable by somebody, anybody out there in the internet. So with that being said, I hope all of you have a great 2022 running season, whatever that looks like for you, whatever distances you're focusing on, and really whatever goals that you may have. I hope that you're able to achieve them. So I'm wishing you the best of luck for a healthy running season, and take care of yourself.